Hello, Dan Altmeyer, the New Normal Guru, and this is the New Normal Chronicles. Today, I'm really excited to have as my first guest the amazing J.R. Arsenal. JR's got an amazing, varied background that we're going to talk about, and we're also going to focus in on what JR is doing in the new normal to adjust his opportunities to the new normal situation. So, with that, I would like to introduce to you the one, the only JR Arsenal.
Ta-da!
There he is, ladies and gentlemen. Okay.
Well, hello, Dan, and hello, well-wishers throughout the world.
That's fantastic. So today I'm talking to you in Charlotte, North Carolina. Is that correct?
That's correct. Lovely South Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay. The south of Charlotte.
Suburbs.
The suburbs. Okay.
I'm a suburban kind of guy.
Okay. Well, that's fantastic. So JR, you and I have known each other pretty much through this last crazy year of our lives and all the changes that have gone on. And I'd certainly like to get to where you're going in the future, but let's kind of relive some of your past here a little bit first. You have a varied background and a lot of accomplishments before your newest pursuits. So I wanted to kind of go back with you. I know you and I both have some time spent in upstate New York.
Rochester.
That's Rochester for those of you who are not familiar with JR's joke there.
Yeah, it's a nice place to be from, but the winters are mild. Now that I've moved away, there's not snow up to my ears the way it was. Upstate New York is an interesting place. You have like pearls on a string. You have Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, Utica, and Albany. And they had what they call I think if I'm recalling correctly, it's over 30 years ago, but they had the Upstate Derby. Who has the most snow? And out of 5 places, it would be good to come in 6th place on that, But they actually had a competition who had the most snow.
Well, when I was going to the University of Rochester, they would have the newscasts on back in the days when they only had 3 channels. And the newscast, as bad as things were in Rochester, they always said, but in Watertown, and there was always like 16 more inches of snow in Watertown, and it was about 15 degrees colder. So
yeah,
I remember that cold up there. But what were you doing in Rochester?
Well, my parents moved up there before I was drafted out of a full scholarship. I'm one of the last 1,000 to be drafted. Isn't that a lovely, dubious distinction to share? And my parents moved from a garden spot, southern Connecticut, between New Haven and New London. We lived in a couple towns there, Guilford and Clinton. We ended up in Guilford, and Guilford's a historic town. It's a wonderful place. 1632 was when it was founded. They call things pre-colonial there because it's a century and a half before the Revolution. And Charlotte was basically 2 Native American trails uptown. Trade and Tryon were 2 trails in the woods at that point. But it was a great place to grow up. Lots of very smart people. in my class. Their parents were from instructors from Yale and stuff like that, and had a lot of friends that were involved. We've got a mutual friend named Charles Coachman out in California, and one of a number of my friends had remarkable music ability. One of them was with guitar guy for Cyndi Lauper, and
Wow.
was Julian Lennon's guitar guy and also producer. And then somebody else was Bryan Adams' guitar guy, and Mickey Curry and John McCurry. No, so they curried up some talent, and it's just all sorts of other people that I could name off, and many I'd forget, because there was just so many people that had remarkable musical abilities. Some just made it to the little bistros, and there's nothing wrong with that. But some made it big, and the point about that is, I really didn't have a musical appreciation until I hit the Southern Shoreline around people like that, and wonderful music instructors. That's been a very big, and is a very big part of my life. I've been married twice, and both of my wives had very strong musical backgrounds. Very different. One was a classical pianist that was trained by somebody from Eastman School, and the other was somebody who was like a Southern gospel jukebox, knew all the old-timey hits, and went to Nashville and did some singing, and just knew the Gaithers, and but how does that relate to me? Well, if you don't have music in your life, you don't have much of a life.
There you go.
And I've been very fortunate to have a broad background with that, and even to date, many of the local bands, they're good friends of mine, and Charlotte Jazz. Well, now it's Jazz Charlotte. But I've got a lot of strong inroads even today with that. But how that relates to me is, in the 80s, I was doing some promotional photography for bands. I did some back then. They'd have fan clubs, and they'd need Ektachrome slides to make internegatives, so that you shoot slides, and then they make a larger negative, and then they can do everything with that. And that was the way that you'd get quality on the road. And it was like Cheap Trick. I mean, ZZ Top. I could go down the Neil Diamond. I photographed an awful lot of situations with people like that. Huey Lewis and the News. Huey was a great guy, to just regular people, kind of a Jay Leno kind of guy. And I guess the point is, when I went to Rochester, of course, is the cradle of photographic civilization. And to know people that knew, some of the people knew George Eastman. It's like the equivalent, as a Christian, of saying, well, this guy knew that Peter was a coarse but funny fisherman, and different stories. We have Charles Coachman here. I'm just going down through the list of some people and acknowledging a few. And we have.
Thank you for sharing, Charles Coachman. Thank you very much. And I can't wait to see who's going to be the next one that shares that.
Yes. Like it and share it and comment. Go easy, because I'm in control here, and control issues. But anyway, everything was wonderful. And then the draft hit, and it was a crisis of conflict, of confusion of life. And to go from sort of like the Hamptons North into a situation where people were told 2 in the Army or 3 in the Slammer, take your pick, son. It was 2 different crowds, and it got me tough quick. And but I did get out of that, and in one piece mostly, and left some scars emotionally. I was in during the Vietnam conflict, and but I got out okay, and went to school, like I said, at RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology. Great place. Dan and I were very fortunate to go to 2 of the finest schools in the United States, because University of Rochester and RIT are definitely places that you're blessed when you go to academically. And
the drinking age was 18.
now we're getting
I'm sorry to interrupt.
I'm starting to think of things like I'm on another show now, like the old, I'd rather have a bottle in front of me over a frontal lobotomy or something. I don't know how that relates.
Let me get us back into.
Thank you.
You were You were in Rochester, the cradle of the photographic world, the center of most of the technology, and
great,
and the optics.
Everything.
So, so when you got out of school, what did you do?
Well, it was interesting because even when I was in school, they had a connection with Eastman Kodak. Of course, RIT is the finest school of imaging science in the universe, and I did a little bit of co-op stuff there, and I got involved with some of their projects. They were doing something called digital photography back when I was a young lad, and I was able to get in on some of that stuff, but that's beyond the scope of what we're saying. But when you're in a place, here's a takeaway from this conversation for me, if nothing else. Hang out with great people like Dan Altmeyer and some of the other people that we hang out with, like Ken Walls and Jeffrey Gittimer. Surround yourself with great people and great books, and you're 2/3 of the way of where you need to be, because they're challenging you every day. And that's one thing I've been very careful in doing, is monitoring my inputs. I wish that everybody would be as careful at doing that. And we have such a great time of information if you choose to participate, that shows like Dan's is talking about emerging from this thing, whatever we're going through. Some people call it the new normal. I call it the new what the heck is next, because I'm not as erudite as Dan on this stuff. That's why I'm a friend of his, to learn about it. But the thing about it is, when you're involved with stuff, here's how you learn, is you learn from your mistakes. So the more mistakes you make early, the better off you are later. So try a lot when you're young, so you don't have to go through some of the suffering later on. But I couldn't, I graduated from RIT, and I actually was first in my class, but I couldn't get a job, because at that point it was the equal opportunity kicked in. Everybody was looking for diversity candidates, minorities. And since I was a white male, even though I had a good degree and stuff, I was presuming if I had a good degree from a good school with a good whatever, that I'd have a ticket. And that was, the game had changed. The cheese had moved. So what did I do? I did the silliest thing a person could do. I started to try to sell pictures in a recession in Kodak Town. And the first year was not good, but the first year I learned an awful lot about how not to market. and things that I shouldn't do, and putting all my eggs in different baskets. And then I got smart. Maybe I got desperate. Maybe I didn't have any alternatives. Maybe I had to succeed or die emotionally. And I was in a great place when that happened, Dan and my friends. And what happened was I came up with something called preschool photography on location. And I went from starving to, and mind you, this was in the early 80s, and it was making $1,000 per camera per day times 6 cameras, cash, net. And so you have a problem from going to, somewhere in the Gospels that says I've had little and I've had much, but I've learned how to be content in all. And honestly, that was a good lesson for me back then, because whatever it is, you got to stay happy, because just because there's a lot of money coming in, I went from zero to 18 states in less than 18 months. And then to 30 states in less than 24 months. And the growth was just ridiculous. And I guess the thing about it, Dan, is that was most amazing was learning, you know what your minimum is, but my maximum, I hadn't had my paradigm high enough. Like if it was like this, and I'm not bragging, but my result was like if I stuck my hand through the ceiling up sort of touching the roof, that's what I had. And I hadn't expected that much success. And so I was actually sabotaging and trying to reduce it down to a level I was comfortable with rather than adjusting for a maximum. It's was an interesting thing when I finally realized I was self-sabotaging. But in the meantime, there was so many adventures. Being Dave Thomas was the CEO, senior CEO is what he called himself, of Wendy's, one of the most successful people in the world at that point, to go from poverty to 3,700 franchises, of which he owned 40% of them outright. And I was working for him, and like I said, doing the stuff for the bands, and just a lot of cool stuff that I was doing with Kodak, Bausch and Lomb, and Rochester Products. Decided to move to Charlotte. And everybody was like, why do you want to do that? And it's like, well, when you're in Rochester, you're up near the border. And I've got Tony Thorpe, who's a really good friend, on watching us. And Tony, I love Nova Scotia because my family's from the provinces, Atlantic Maritimes, but there's no work up there. So I wanted to move to Charlotte because the work, 2/3 of the United States is within a day's drive population from Charlotte. And I did, and I took a hit, and I missed my family and I missed my friends up there, but I created something new. And it was, looking back, it was a profound thing. Sometimes in order to get something new, you need to release your hands to have 2 hands to get. And I'm talking here, Dan, and I'm talking, but
and I'm enjoying this. This is the easiest interview I've ever had.
Thank you.
So you started out getting out of college, but you had checked all the boxes.
I did.
But opportunity took you in a different direction than getting a job job.
Yeah.
And at first it seemed like that was the it was unfair, and I did all the right things and everything else, but it led you to a different box. And
it was great.
And then that box led you to a point where you were bursting out of the box.
just creating new things. And the thing that's nice about, I won't say failure. Here's what failure is. Failure is having a setback and quitting. That's an awful thing to do to yourself, because we've all been destined for greatness. There's a unique thing that the creator put us down here to do. And you need to find out what it is. And you need to not worry about what other people think, because I was going to be a manager in a large photographic operation, and I was later on, and that was not fun. I was a manager in a company that the years that I was there, we were doing almost 900 million a year in photography worldwide. And it wasn't fun. It was nice compensation, but I was not enjoying myself, because I was one of the few photographers there. And that was no fun. What I'd like to do is, I've got a little slideshow while we're doing this, and I was actually going to show a little bit of my stuff if I could.
Sure, please.
Let me get the right display on. We're still learning this thing. Pardon me while I let me put us over here. Let's see. Here we go. Sorry about that.
Okay, well, we moved over to the side.
I am sorry about that. It went very smoothly before when I tried this. You never.
Let us just say this is not failure, because we're not going to give up.
No, we're.
So while you're massaging the system here, let me just ask you. Once you, I remember you telling me the other day that you had also been in the financial services field.
Yeah. I went.
How did that come about?
Well, I went through everything I could go through as far as creating the company that I created was Tot Shots. And I had a picture of a bear next to a camera, unbearably good pictures. And the big boys found out, because when you create something and it's very lucrative, I mean, we're photographing 80,000 kids a year. I was a high-priced apple picker, very well compensated with 6 guys and gals on the road. But the big boys found out, and we were making $10 a piece net on our sittings, and they went down to 70 cents a piece, because they were school photographers and they looked at this as a way to keep their employees busy.
Sure.
Just keeping things busy and paying for the operation to go when they were down. So basically they came and took the cheese, and I had nothing. And about that time, my dearly beloved and I decided to part ways. And so I really was, I had just turned 40, and I had to do something. And so I mucked around a little bit and did a few things. And then I got into finance. I got into mortgages, because in the 90s, that was a good place to be before the crash. And again, okay, here's another lesson. The thing that I've learned in life, one of them is you go for quality or you go for quantity. That crap in the middle, you don't want to be part of it, because everybody's there. So like we did quantity with preschoolers, but I also had some stuff where I was doing high-end photography. And the same's true with mortgages. I didn't want to do 30 mortgages a month with entry-level people. So I did custom home building. It was construction to permanent lending, sort of two loans in one. And I went up to we have a very lucrative, affluent thing called Western North Carolina. And there was all sorts of gated communities they were making with 7-figure houses going up. And I worked for a small company called Wachovia. And oh my God, they had some great, they had wonderful programs for poor people, and they had wonderful programs for rich people. And then they had a bunch of crap in the middle that was like everybody else for everybody else. And, when you're catering to, I really was a concierge level type of guy where I was getting up at 4 a.m. and going up and having breakfast 3 hours away. And there was one time when I went up to help somebody site trees in their new place because they were building a $4 million house that I was getting a nice commission on. And so you do whatever you have to do. That's another takeaway, to keep them happy, because I don't want anybody to take my business. I hate doing weddings, but if I've got a commercial client, I'll do the weddings, I'll do the bar and batsmith business, I'll do whatever you need, because I don't want someone else with a camera who's going to take your dollar anywhere near you. I'm that kind of a guy.
There you go. Well, you by bringing value to people, you always maintain the relationship. So
you do.
That's a real key that I found throughout my career, is that you don't have to make money on everything that you do. You just have to make friends.
Thank you. The thing that was really difficult was 2007, because Charlotte was one of 2 financial centers in the United States. And I was not on the, pardon my language, the bloody tip of the spear, because to be in the mortgage business in Charlotte, North Carolina, was to take it on the nose. And there were a couple lean years there and tough years, but we got through it. And I decided afterwards to go back into my first love. So that was photography. And, it's when you know what to do and when you've got the equipment and the ability, not so much camera ability, but the ability to go out there and hustle, because that's what I had learned, was how to, here's another lesson. I pick who I want to work for, and I just hammer them, and I'll drip campaign them. I've got my golden 100 dream customer list where I'm sending them out stuff. Hippo video is something that I do now with a couple of them. And for those who aren't aware, there is a wonderful program that you can get into very inexpensively. And you send a video to somebody and it tells you when they open it up and how long they've watched it, if they've finished watching it, if they share it. And it's priceless, because I'm not sending them junk mail. I'm sending them, hi, Dan, man, I know you're up there and doing this, and I want to be your producer, man. I mean, I just think you got a cool show, brother. What do you think?
That's a brilliant thing. I just finished the last 2.5 years. I was the volunteer president of the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors in the greater Washington, D.C. area. And I have met throughout my 35-year financial services career an amazing number of amazingly talented people in that field. But a lot of those people aren't making any money. And the reason they're not making any money is not because they're not talented. It's not because they're not ethical or not good or whatever. The reason that they're not making money to make a living is because they don't have anybody to talk to. And so marketing is so key. And I really think that you really hit the nail on the head. It's great to have the skills, but more important than the skills, you have to have either somebody else putting people in front of you, or you have to do it yourself. Now, I know when you were in 18 states, you with the preschools, you had other people taking the pictures, and you had other people that were setting up those arrangements, I'm sure, for that much volume. But the key thing is somebody has to do that. If nobody comes to the play, then it's practice.
Well, the thing about that is, I really didn't have anybody doing my marketing and merchandising.
That's great.
I bought my list from Dun and Bradstreet, and I bet the farm on it. And Grant Cardone is somebody who's made a fortune, and he's a thought leader. And he made a comment about, if you got a plan B, get rid of plan B. And I couldn't afford a plan B after a debacle, after coming out of school and not having a successful year. But I did put, it was like, it was like Casablanca, where that young man goes into the casino. I put everything on red 13. And how I did that was, I did have a very strong background learning anyway in marketing. And I bought a list, and it was 50,000 names, coast to coast, of everybody that had a daycare license that had over 100 kids. And I sent them a 3-piece mail. One was the envelope, one was a folded note, and one was a BRC, business reply card. And I thought, well, maybe I'll get a couple hundred, maybe I'll get 100 or 200 responses, because I never did that before. Well, the problem was I had almost 3,200 responses.
Wow.
And so I eliminated a lot of states. We have some great friends like Doug in Utah, but I wasn't going to be making a whole lot of money in Utah. So we got it down to about 1,000, and then I contacted everybody. And then I got overwhelmed on the workload, and I went through my failure cycles and stuff. Made a lot of money in the failure cycles. You can fail and make money. Yeah. But I learned from my lessons. So I was set for the next year, and I got the right people in place, did it again. And fortunately, the market was big enough so that my failures were not connecting to my new prospects. Yeah. How's that for a note of humility somewhere here? Don't get shocked, my old friends.
So let me fast forward here. Sure. Up to the you have now gone back into the photography business after the financial services, and you're building your practice in Charlotte, and working with your 100 target people. Your big hitters.
Oop, sorry about that. Hey, I finally figured out the pictures. That was
okay.
Sorry about that.
That was an interesting prelude there. So that wasn't what. Never mind. I won't say that. So
don't try this at home, kids.
Yeah, well, exactly. And so very important for me is you went back to the business that you loved.
Yeah.
And started working back in that business and getting a base in that business. How did that business, or how were you affected when we transitioned into this COVID world in 2020?
Even before that, we were in a digital world. So there's people that have cameras and the word, well, that too. And that eliminates a lot of stuff because there's a friend of ours that was doing quite well in team photography. And then all of a sudden everybody discovered, I mean, some of us are crazy. Some of us have two. And, because you got to be on both platforms. But anyway, there you go. But that changed things. Digital photography changed things because it's possible to make mediocre pictures, letting the camera do all the brain work for you because you haven't learned and you don't know what you're doing. And there's a little arrow in the word front underneath the camera to remind you in case if you get confused. Wait a minute. But that was a challenge right there.
RIT coming out in you. That's all.
Well, the RIT and being successful and being master craftsman photographer and all of it.
Absolutely.
And we didn't get into that and we won't. But the thing about it is that we have a variety of things, that you're doing. It won't be the girl now. Just some different things that I've done in the recent past. But when things stop, and when I stopped creating lovely stuff like this because everybody's got COVID, what do? I mean, photography was dead in the water. And there were clients that I had that I had built up, that catalog photography that pays very nice and has a comma on the check. And, you get used to that showing up with the new catalog season. And they didn't postpone it. They canceled it. And it's still canceled a year later. So what you do is you learn a new trick. And the new trick is exactly what Dan and I and several of our wonderful new friends are doing. We've learned how to do this. And with varying degrees, there's our favorite picture, the one that came up. But I mean, I still do this stuff, but I do it more for my own enjoyment. Because right now I want to do production with people like Dan. I want to create things. I want to do different things. And so how do you do that? Well, you have to let go what you had before and you have to learn new techniques and the things I talked about with videos that talk and report. And there's a New Haven picture, but the things that I had to do was I took the time last year and spent a lot of time and a lot of effort. And if you haven't noticed, everybody, I'm getting a little bit older. I'm not supposed to use the O word, is what a couple people told me, but it's your brain slows down. You're not like you were in college where you can do whatever on one hand, but on the other hand, you've got a lot more information and a lot more experience, so you can handle the material better. It's sort of a two-edged sword. And Dan and I have learned that, and we're doing new things now, using the ability, building on what we knew before. And so I'm doing the photography, I'm doing the production with this, and I'm doing other things, publishing journals and coloring.
So you're kind of like the PPP, except you're not the loan. You've got a plan that's that has 3 Ps.
Exactly.
And what are those areas again?
Oh, the 3 Ps are photography and production, like being a producer of shows like this. And because you got to get your name out, and getting your name out regularly is how people call you. If they don't know you, if they don't see this beautiful work, they don't know they don't know I'm there. And then the other is publishing. And publishing is going to be coloring books, but focused coloring books for corporate and things along those lines that I'm developing. And using my photography and using my production to get to that end. Everything feeds everything. And it's kind of got a symbiotic interoperable nature where the three pieces are working with each other. But anyway, you know, those are my pretty pictures. I promise I'll never forget the moment when my first picture
came right there.
Pardon me?
Was that eye candy?
Well, this is eye candy too to some people, and it's just I don't just do one genre of photography, as you can see.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's something very personal, and that's something that actually that's my Vargas girl or my Intimidate, and I've done some of that successfully, but that commercial where I do things, it all gets together. That was actually a wedding couple, and fashion photography for catalog type stuff. There's a band right there. It's stuff that goes back. I love history, so creating pictures like that. I love pizza, so pictures like that.
That's a heck of a good looking pie right there.
It really was. We could talk a while about how I've consumed too many calories on New Haven pizza, but
I think
we'll get people all upset.
Well, so one of the 3 P's you were talking about was production.
Yes.
And so you are going to be producing my New Normal Chronicles.
Yes.
And I'm very happy about that. But you've kind of created a brand around that. And let's talk about that.
I've got the Go Live Sherpa, and that's streaming video production. And what I can do is have up to 10 people on one screen in one format, like what we had here, and interview them and have lovely pictures and have people commenting and create it. I mean, if there's someone that sees this, you can reach out to me. And we've got a variety of things that we do. Just, jrarsenal@gmail.com. I don't have the banner. I'm actually in a new screen with the New Normal Chronicles, which is Dan Altmeyer is a guy. This is all about me, but Dan Altmeyer is a guy that's also creating something new, and he's going to be interviewing people that are entrepreneurial, that are forward thinking, that have worked through things like him and I have. And when he calls it the new normal, I call it what's the next step normal, because everything is normal at that time, no matter how weird it might appear at the moment or feel. But we're both in a place where we're not kids, obviously, but we're you folks watching this should be jealous, because we're 2 kids in a sandbox and we're having fun.
So I just want to piggyback on that. And, as far as the new normal is concerned, since that's my focus right now, one of the things I recognize, I did that 23andMe test, with the chromosomes and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things they told me was that I have about 25% more Neanderthal, whatever, in my genome than the average person in the world. Now, there are other people that have more than me, but that means that my way back relatives, the Neanderthals, had a new normal, and that was somebody came up with a fire. Somebody came up with a wheel. Okay, the new normal isn't new. Everybody has to deal with changes. The difference now is that change comes so fast.
Yes.
And most of us have been hit by that dramatic change over the last 12 to 15 months. And that is what our new normal guru program is about. The Chronicles will chronicle people like JR, like other people that we're going to have here in the near future, and the going on throughout the run of the new normal Chronicles. People who have found a change, a situation where the new rules, the new topics are different. JR was talking about New Haven, Connecticut. Okay. My grandfather graduated from Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut, with a law degree in 1911. And he never practiced law a day in his life, but he went on to become the highest ranking non-appointed person in the United States Treasury Department before he retired. I remember watching TV with him one time I think we were watching Perry Mason, and I said, Grandpa, how come you weren't a lawyer like that? And he said, when I went to law school, they taught me how to know the rules. He said, once you know the rules, you can win any game.
Exactly.
And that's the key to building and beating change, is knowing the rules, identifying the rules, knowing how the rules change. Those of us who watch sports know they keep changing the rules and everything. But that's okay, because it's their new normal. We need to deal and adapt, not be, JR was referring to his age. I think he's younger than me, but he just doesn't look it. But the key thing is that, a lot of times old people just sit back and say, well, it's not the way it used to be back in my day. Well, you can do that. And I think, there's some value to that, I guess. But the real value is in saying, if we just tweak this or we tweak that, and I can utilize the knowledge that I have from before and apply that so that I don't make the mistakes that somebody just viewing these situations does, we can add value both from our own expertise, but also for other people. So what we're trying to do with the New Normal Chronicles is bring successful people to the forefront so that other people can see what's working and how people have gone from where they were at to a current new path for success. So
Dan, I got to tell you something, buddy. Listen, you're too polite on this, because the cheese has moved and we can squeak and complain, but you either find the cheese or you starve, right?
That is a situation that a lot of people find themselves in.
And we are thriving because we've moved on. We're having fun right now in the COVID. I don't know what I'm going to be when I grow up, because it's still evolving, but it's so wonderful because it's taking me to places that I've never thought I would be. I wasn't in front of a camera talking to people. I was behind the camera. And you weren't doing this. You were selling
employment
benefits.
Yeah.
But so now we're both helping people.
Wrapping this thing up, I do want to ask you a question, now that you are looking at the future and and have your 3 Ps going there. What are you reading now? Where are you getting your inspirations from? It could be reading, or it could be groups that you're in, whatever.
I'm in a couple mastermind groups with people that are a lot smarter than me. I never want to be the smartest person in the room because there's no place for me to go. And I've definitely found a situation like that with our Grow Live group, where there's brilliant people in there, not to take away from myself, that are very successful. There's people that because I've gone out and ventured out into this, I've met Jeffrey Gitomer, and I have been friends for a long time, 30 years. But I've met Joe Soto. I met you. I met Doug Wing. I could go down through a list of people. Ken Walls, of course, with the Grow Live Academy. Glenn Morshower, a great actor who's even more inspirational off camera than on. Brilliant guy, utterly brilliant. And any of these people are worth following. But when you're doing it on a weekly basis, all of a sudden you start to become this way with this. Because I don't wake up in the morning, even though I have 2 of them, and do this. I don't go on my Facebook. I'm in myself, and I don't go with OPP. Other people's problems don't start my day. I'm thinking, I've already planned out the night before what I'm going to do the next day, and I'm journaling, and I'm thinking, and I'm planning, and I'm learning, and I've got a little devotional and stuff, because if you don't have a connection from above, what are you doing? I mean, you need something greater than you. If you're the greatest thing in your life, I feel sorry for you, because I can say that from experience of many years. You don't want to ask me an open-ended question, Dan. Have you noticed this?
Yeah, like I said, you're an easy interview.
Yeah. But I love it. I love it because we're in an intellectual nirvana with the buffet line of people that we have to choose from.
Absolutely. And one of the great things that I found over the last year is that the internet and Zoom and Google Meet and Facebook Live and all these different tools that we have allow us to meet people all over the place. There have been several people that have come on to this call that you've shown their comments on there that I know, but I know them through those venues. I've never met them face to face, but we used to be limited a lot by our geography, where we were at. But Tony Thorpe, who was on commenting earlier, is up in the maritime provinces in Canada, Nova Scotia, and
great guy.
Absolutely. And Charles Coachman, who was on, is in San Francisco, and I've never met either one of those guys, but I feel like I know them. And we've had interaction, and we've helped each other, and I think that that's one of the beautiful things about new venues, is that we can make those new connections and find rooms where we're not the smartest person in the room. By the way, I don't have that problem either. Of going into rooms and being the smartest person in the room. It's more of an opportunity to listen and throw some value in when I can, or maybe crack a joke or something. Like I'm in the back of the room at the classroom when I was a class clown.
Bad puns, bad puns.
Bad puns. Yes, I am famous. In my family, they don't call them bad puns; they call them dad puns. But
Oh my,
so
that title.
they've been branded. I branded my puns, but so just kind of wrapping things up, JR. I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your history, your background, your inspiration, and most importantly, being really open about your story and how it's gone in cycles and that you've overcome different things. And then life happens, and then you have another opportunity to overcome something else. And I think that's a lesson that everybody has to learn, that if you're not going to be that grumpy old person when you get to that point, or maybe that grumpy young person, you always need to be looking for what is really your destiny. And your destiny may be to be in one place today, and then next year doing something different, and that leads you to your ultimate destiny. One of the things we do every day with the New Normal Guru is that we have a quick little vignette, a quick little video that is walking with the guru, and I try and throw a little piece of information out there and maybe inspiration or whatever. But the key thing is, I end every one of those broadcasts with "Embrace your destiny."
Exactly.
And that's because you were made, JR. You were made, Tony Thorpe. You were made, Charles Coachman, to do the best that you can. And you need to find that. And that's what we all have to do, is find what our destiny is. But you can't do that sitting on a couch. You can't do that. You can't do that watching Netflix. You can't do that sitting in a bar room. The only way you can do it is by being active and looking for what that destiny is.
Exactly.
So just in wrapping this up, I want to again thank you, JR, not just for coming on, but also for your vision of becoming the Go Live Sherpa. And wait, here it comes. High tech here.
No dollars were wasted in this production.
High tech streaming across the screen there. But the Go Live Sherpa, I'm the New Normal Guru, so I should have a Sherpa.
Yes.
Okay. And
I have a guru.
But you know what? He is not my Sherpa alone. He is ready to work with anybody, bring his almost 50 years of production and camera skills and photography and lighting and brilliance of his experience in business to help others on this journey, to share what they have, what knowledge they have, what vision they have, so that they can make a difference in the world, maybe find their destiny.
Thank you.
So I want to thank you for coming today, for being my production guy, but also putting yourself out there for everybody to find out more about you. And I want to thank everybody for coming today, whether you're live or whether you are watching this on replay. Please share this. Please like it. Please make comments. That's the only way the message gets out. And I want to leave you with one last piece of advice, and that is everybody has a destiny. You need to embrace your destiny.